All right, well, welcome y'all. We are here to talk about how to propose an OWHE conference proposal. We've changed up the system and the approach a bit this time, particularly because we have a virtual conference this time, and that really changes what opportunities we have. So excited to jump in and share a lot of that with you. And so let folks, sorry, oh, yep, I got it. I'll let folks introduce themselves. So Emma, do you want to share kind of how you came to this?
Hi, everyone. My name is Emma Larkins. I use she, her pronouns. I am the Associate Director of Operations at the Career Development Center at Oregon State, and I'm a PhD student in Women's and Gender Studies. I've been involved with Oregon Women in Higher Education for about 5 years now, I think, serving on various committees, and I just really enjoy it. And as a piece of that, I have been a reviewer and a part of the education committee, helping prepare for the conference for quite a few years. So that's how I come to you for this session.
I'm Shannon Shivers. I'm the Director of Education for OWHE, and have been involved the last few years with this whole process. I'm also at OSU as University Exploratory Studies program, and I use she, her pronouns.
I'm Sara Spiers. I'm at Portland State and Washington State University on the Vancouver campus. And I work in both of those roles, I work as a research assistant. I think I joined OWHE about 2 or 3 years ago, and I helped review proposals last year.
Great. All right, so let's dive in. So just some basic info about the conference this year. So it's going to take place from January 25th to the 29th. We're extending it to a full week, so that way folks aren't just on Zoom in a conference all day long, because that can be really intense and exhausting. The theme we've got this year is building the plane while we fly it, how we persist. And it represents the opportunity for our community to really come together and really honor the innovation and creativity that it's been taking for all of us to transition and learn on the spot and refuel our passion and persist through all of the unrest that we're dealing with and all of the racial injustices. And we can continue to learn and grow together. So you'll kind of have that theme of learning and growing together throughout this presentation. And in light of that, I want to show a short video. So Stratagem is a conference that's put on by Cicely Blaine Consulting, which is a Canadian-based firm. They do a lot of like racial justice, equity work. And they did a virtual conference this last July. And this is their kind of video of what that was like. And I was really inspired by it. And I would love for our conference to really kind of have the same kind of energy. You'll see a lot of non-traditional things for conferences shown. There's a heavy focus on social justice and community building, and so you'll see that, and hopefully you'll see kind of where my mind is and kind of where we're hoping to go with this. So I'm gonna go ahead and let me actually make sure my screen share is gonna share the audio the right way.
First of all, welcome to Stratagem.
Please join me. Last year, we had a total of 327 attendees. This year, we had 1,046 attendees.
It only takes 3.5% of people to create a revolution. So let's do that 3.5.
Anaqueto, Celia Joseph Quiansna, Stahe Alot Quian Kwashame, This work is complex and overt and systemic and insidious and interactional. And so it's a way that we can look at all of that.
And just welcome you all. It's a real pleasure to be here with all of you today at Stratagem Virtual, truly making lemonade out of the seemingly endless stream of lemons we've been passed in this year in 2020.
I'm gonna give ourselves like a couple of minutes just to come in and settle in. I don't know about you, but these virtual sessions have me kind of overwhelmed with like needing to show up right on time. We're still human.
Have you seen my ummy's dot? It's a bright and pretty spot. Her dot comes in every hue. She likes red and sometimes blue. She peels and pastes it like a sticker, gently with her thumb and finger. Above her nose is where it goes. What is this dot? I want to know. Ummi, why do you wear that dot? What's so special about that spot? Thank you. I'm just like, my face is just like, I can't believe. Yeah, I have no words. This is incredible. Like, what a cool concept. I'm just so very grateful. Thank you very, very much. This is really beautiful. And
I'm Kevin, I'm a leader, get these volunteers in line. Yeah, I train him, you can watch me while I shake my black behind. Business, bitch, smashing with ceilings, watch these white boys lose their mind. Strategizing for my people, and I do it looking fine.
Hey!
Get funky, get low, get funky, get low. Hey! Ooh, I used to be able to go lower. I know, right? Like, oh, my legs.
Let's get everything kicked off. It's okay to be gay. We are different in many ways. Doesn't matter, you're a boy, girl, or somewhere in between. We all are part of one big family.
And whilst we have epistemologies that have been created that position transness as new, or that position transness as Western, we need to create epistemologies that transcend that, epistemologies that see transness in a view that is ingrained with Blackness, that is ingrained within a long history within society, and how that epistemology will transform the ways that we look at the world and the ways that we deal with the complexities of Blackness and transness.
Why does everything have to be about race? Like, the short answer is that old dead white dudes made up all the rules, and they were racist, and so the rules were racist.
You're broken, so stay open, won't you? Keep opening up, stay open, won't you? Satya Mai Parame.
But I won't let them break me down to dust. I know that there's a place for us.
I'm Karen from Laissez, and we use recycled materials to make workwear that feels like pajamas.
My artwork celebrates the magic of the African diaspora and the beauty of cutie BIPOC communities, meaning queer, trans, Black, Indigenous, people of color communities.
There's some things that are on my shop.
It's just boop, 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 boop. Very carefully. Oh.
I'm trying to support you in the field.
So it's kind of long. There's a few more minutes of it, but I wanted to kind of give you a taste of kind of thinking about OE and how we, well, scrolling through. I'm not sure why it stopped being full screen. Okay. A taste of OE and how, we are affiliated with academia. We have lots of great research-based traditional conference presentations, but OE is also, especially the conference, has always been a place where you really come as your whole self, right? Not just your professional facade. And so I really liked that this demonstrated, right? People are bringing their talents that come in many shapes and forms, and we have the room and space and capability to do a lot of really interesting things like that. So one of the things that we've started in terms of thinking about how the conference is going to be structured is we've got like a loose plan for 9 a.m. to noon every day of the week. We'll have something programmed. Some of those will be things like keynotes or sessions, conference sessions primarily. And then 6 to 7, we also have time though. So for folks who maybe are only available in the evening. So if you're like, oh, I need to do my conference session in the evening, that works too. And then I think we'll have like networking and engagement stuff probably more in the evening as well. And the idea though is that we can really be flexible. If you're like, I want to do this 3-hour workshop that I've always wanted to do, but like no one wants me to do it because it's 3 hours and it's a big deal, you know, whatever it is that you want to do, we want to help you make it happen. And there's that flexibility this year with the virtual space. We don't have to be, you know, confined to X amount of seats and X amount of setup, and you know, the time frame for each person is stacked back to back, right? So I really want you to think creatively and dream big about what you really would love to do. So that's kind of what I was just covering there in terms of time, right? So it's about what your goals are, what your interests are. And then thinking about what's available in your space, right? You have things in your home and in your space that you wouldn't necessarily have or want to bring with you to a conference. And hopefully, as you noticed in the beginning of the video I showed, they talked about like the amount of participants was way higher, right? So we are hoping to have more accessibility. Folks who maybe live in more rural communities might be able to have an easier time coming, or folks who couldn't have afforded to come in the past, you know, it's a lower rate and it's more accessible. And so this also means that we have more bandwidth for narrow niche topics, right? In the past, you're like, well, this has to appeal to enough people to be worth it. This time it's like, well, if this isn't your topic, that's fine. You just don't tune into that one and you go to the one that is specific to your interests, right? So we're not going to be screening that as well. We're just going to be trying to help you present your topic. Yeah, and anything creative, share your talents with the community. All right, and I'm going to hand this off to Sara.
All right, thank you, Shannon. So what I'm here to do for the next few minutes is to share some things I've been working on and trying to learn with how to engage individuals virtually. So I work with primarily kids in foster care. And so COVID has caused me to have to shift how I interact with those students. For about 6 or 7 months, I wasn't able to visit them in person, and it's very hard to try to keep a young student's attention. So I've just had to been brainstorming a lot of ways to engage and connect virtually. So I thought that translated well to when you have conferences or presentations. So I really just wanted to share those and hope that you can integrate them into your proposed topic. So some of those ways are using, these are going to be specific for Zoom because I believe our platform will be Zoom. And if it's not, then we will be able to do all these same things on whatever platform we choose.
It's definitely Zoom.
Okay. So breakout rooms can mirror small group discussion. So instead of being at your little circle table in a conference room or whatever, you can just do random breakout rooms for people. And you can have them be the same breakout room every time or different breakout rooms. So I know sometimes in conferences, it's like introduce yourself to the person next to you if it's a small conference, and then the other person, and then y'all like introduce each other to a larger group. You could do something comparable to that, but in a breakout room. The whiteboard I'll show you in a minute. I believe it's the next slide. So we'll do that. But a whiteboard essentially replaces the the big sticky note pieces of paper or writing on a chalkboard. And one really fun thing I do with some of my students is I'll get a coloring sheet, and you can put a picture or a graph on the whiteboard, and then everyone can just draw it together. So that way you're together, but you might not be talking. It's good to do when people are coming into your session. Be like, hey, we're just going to wait a minute. Go fill out, go color this, or draw your favorite flower, or, you can kind of get people to doodle and start engaging quickly. Poll questions and trivia breaks. So one thing I have found is like sometimes you don't know if people are paying attention or not. And so doing random poll questions or trivia breaks pulls people back in. I really appreciate fun, maybe not necessarily content related poll questions. So one of my favorites is like, what kind of Zoomer are you? Are you a multitasker? So you have it on one screen and then you have something else going on in the background. Are you, a muter? Do you always have your video on? Are you the one who always talks? So sometimes you can do just random fun facts about people. Again, things you would do in person that you might not be able to do virtually. Ask questions. This is really important. I feel like people that I've worked with in conferences I've done on Zoom, people do not want to unmute themselves. So in a normal conference, you might have to wait 30 seconds. Sometimes I'm waiting like a minute, and eventually people will respond. But just remember to give yourself some extra time to allow that. You can use the raise your hand or clap. So if you're still with me, clap, raise your hand if you have any questions. The chat box is good. You can drop stuff, drop resources in there. You can talk to people individually. Don't be afraid to screen share. And I think that kind of makes it a little more engaging when you're not just looking at your PowerPoint. You're like, oh, someone asked a really great question. I don't know. Let's screen share, pull up Google, and do it together. Because again, with this virtual conference, one thing we really want to do is kind of build community and build our knowledge as we go along. And part of doing that would be pausing your presentation and being, let's go learn about that together. So that's, those are kind of ways to engage virtually.
You want to mention the music, or did I miss that?
Oh, no, yeah, or just like you can kind of how we played a video, you can have music as people come and go, or when people break into the waiting room as they come back. It's just a nice transition. And the next slide is going to be what the whiteboard looks like. So this would just be, as people come in, you can have the whiteboard up with some instructions. And if this is an option, we can show you how to do it.
You want to do it real quick? Or?
No.
I would like to also add, one of the things I love using the whiteboard for is you can pose a question and people can type their answer that way, and it'll be anonymous unless you set it to not be. But a lot of times people feel more comfortable typing in an answer when it's anonymous rather than going into the chat. And then you can kind of see it populating all over your screen. And you can even save the whiteboard when you're done. So you have you can capture those things that people wrote anonymously. So that's a pretty cool way to use the whiteboard as well.
Yeah, I like the idea of it being more anonymous. Okay, and then another way to engage people, one thing that I've learned and has been very helpful for me is trying to get as many people to talk within the first 5 minutes of any presentation you give. And I'll speak for myself in this, as I really miss connecting with people. So I am someone who wants my Zoom meetings, my Zoom conferences to be err on the side of too much engagement and community building. And maybe you can put some content in an email, but let's just hang out on Zoom for an hour. So again, those are some examples of poll questions that, you're still infusing OWHE values and missions in the question, but they might not be content related. Other questions to really pull in your audience and kind of get a temperature for where everyone is. would be asking them, use the whiteboard feature. What's one thing you'd like to learn about our time together? You can kind of do a raise your hand if sort of scenario. So that one doesn't involve talking. You just kind of raise your hand with the little hand emoji in Zoom. I really like this one. And everyone would go around and you would say like, I'm one word and I'm in. So it's getting people, helping people acknowledge how they feel. Like some people might be like, I'm tired and I'm in, you know, I'm here and I'm ready to go. So it's just simple reflection, pulse of what's going on. And then it's helping them frame their mind to be like, okay, I'm in this Zoom presentation, ready to engage. Another one would be like, just kind of like Pictionary, but you're talking, you know, if I'm looking at my lamp, everyone tries to describe something they're looking at on their desk and you guess what it is. I didn't write this one down, but another thing is to pick a shape. So you'd say a square and list 5 square things around you. You know, it just gets like 5 square things on your desk. So you can do fun things like that I feel, well, it gets people laughing, it gets people excited. It just helps them become present. So those were my tips that I've used to try to build community and engagement in the virtual Zoom world. And so now I want to shift a little bit to some potential topics. So last year, everyone who went to the conference at the end of it completed a survey, and Shannon and I kind of grouped all the ideas together and connected them to the OWHE values to help you think of ideas. But I want to reiterate, if there's anything you wanted to ever try on Zoom, then we would encourage it and try to find a way to help you tie it to an OWHE value and do it. So even if you wanted to do a 45-minute Zoom conversation to replicate what it used to be like when you were with your friends at a coffee shop and sit there and say, I've been thinking, let's say, like, I've been thinking about student resources, and you just see where the conversation goes. You know, anything you want to do to replicate or just try, you know, it's time, you know, when you're with your friends, like, oh, I've been thinking about this, and you think you solve the world problems, like anything like that, it's fine. We want you to do it. So these are some of the topics. I think there's a blog post that goes more in depth into what we mean when we say, a lot of people wanted like mindfulness practices. So one idea for a mindfulness practice is if you know someone, or if you're trying to get like a yoga certificate or improve your mindfulness practice, maybe a potential topic you propose is learning mindfulness strategies together. And you could lead them and work on your approaches and teach other people. So you're learning together. Okay. And I think the next slide is an example of kind of what I did. So say you're really interested in equity inclusion along with personal and professional growth. I kind of like to put two values together to create a more robust topic, but you can pick just one value. So I'm thinking, okay, if those were my 2 areas of interest, a lot of individuals talk about affordability, higher education affordability for women, higher education affordability for students. We all know the price is only going to continue to go up. So if that's what you're interested in, let's brainstorm some potential presentations. Finding scholarships, you could do a share your screen and help people figure out, what do I type into Google when I'm looking for scholarships? Constructing a resume. People probably have a resume on their computer. And if there are 3 or 4 people who sign up and aren't comfortable sharing their screen, you could walk through resume building with them. writing a personal statement. Maybe you do some value-driven questions to get people thinking about who they are, you know, why they want to go to this program or get the certificate. And they have set aside this hour for your presentation. They might have no distractions unless they're a multitasker, Zoomer. And so just sitting down and doing it with someone might be what they need. Very valuable presentation, or almost an event, more like. And then maybe you know of some cool online quizzes or assessments, and you could do finding the right degree. So find 3 or 4 different virtual assessments and do that with them. And then everyone comes back and talks about, oh, I found out I was a visual learner. I never knew that about myself. I need to find a program that does X, Y, and Z. Something like that. Okay, so I was going to have us do an activity to get together, but we'll come back to this if we have time.
Great, this is me. I did want to just pause and see if there are any questions that have come up or things that anyone wants to raise. Cool, okay. I'll try to keep an eye to the chat box too, but with such a small group, like feel free to unmute yourself and raise questions as they come up. So I'm going to be talking a little bit about the application process itself. I think as you are thinking about submitting, broadly, what you should know is that with this proposal process, the education committee is working to unsettle or shift the normative processes, as has been mentioned and as the video kind of alluded to. When reviewers, and even like that idea of like a reviewer, I know is an imperfect framework, but as readers are going to be going through proposals, we're going to be approaching this less with an evaluative perspective, like, is this a yes, is this a no, are we going to approve it or decline it, and more as a starting point, like how can we work alongside the proposer to include this as a part of the conference. Like overall, we are really approaching this with a screening in mentality. We want to make as many of them work as long as they align with the mission, vision, and values of OWHE. So to submit a proposal requirement, I will note the proposal link is live. So you could leave this session this afternoon and start submitting if you feel so inclined. It's a Google document, but as a part of that Google document, there's a link to a PDF of the full proposal. So if you wanted to download that PDF and kind of work through your proposal to begin before you go through the submission, there is we have the PDF there, so you can do that. On the proposal, you're going to find mostly open-ended questions, along with some opportunities to indicate where you might benefit from additional support. So if you have submitted a proposal, thank you, Shannon. If you submitted a proposal before, a lot of it will feel pretty familiar. We haven't revolutionized what we're asking for, but I would say largely what we're most interested in seeing are the ideas. So, you know, we're going to be asking questions around what do you want to explore in this session? How does it align with the mission, vision, and values of the organization? And then how do you think you're going to begin to do that? It's okay if there are areas where things still feel hazy or you're not exactly sure the mechanics, like the actual methods by which you're going to structure your session and, you know, the questions that you'll ask your participants. We don't need to know that at this point. And I know in the past, there is a push, and especially with other conferences, there's a push to have, you know, like in 5-minute increments, how are you going to move through your session? And we're less interested in that. We really are more invested in the ideas and what you want to do with your session. So I would say overall, we want you to feel okay and to feel able to submit something that may not be fully fleshed out. We know that, especially in this moment, that there's a lot of room for ideas to shift and to grow and to take different forms between when you submit something and then when you actually deliver that in January. So finally, there is a question around your comfort with technology. And when we ask that, it's not something that we're using to evaluate you. It's not a trick question if you say you're not comfortable with Zoom. We really just want to understand where everybody is at. And we'll use that to provide appropriate support and educational outreach. Shannon's running us through. Oh, okay.
One flash in between. Sorry, I've also shared in the chat the form to submit a proposal, and we've set the initial review date as the October 26th. And again, what we would prefer is if you have like the general ideas around it, to have you submit early with the knowledge that it will develop and grow over time, and that's okay. Just so that way we can get a sense of kind of what we have and what we're going to put together. But we'll, you know, also understand that, you know, it's busy time and it's chaotic, and there's a lot of moving targets in 2020. And so, you know, we're definitely happy to work with you. So really the key is to submit and to reach out and to connect with us if you're interested in doing a proposal. Does anyone have specific questions that have come out of this?
Hey, I'm Leah. I guess two things. One is I really.
So I have a question.
Oh, Leah, you want to go ahead and then we'll get to you, Christy? I think Leah already started.
Okay, sorry about that. So first, I want to tell you that I loved all the arts in your example. So I hope that something manifests out of that. I guess the specific question that I had was just, you talked about partnering with the committee to develop ideas, and so I'm just wondering a little bit more about how you imagine that would work.
In terms of like partnering with the committee to kind of work on it together, or more in terms of like building, getting a group together and just kind of facilitating a community dialogue at the conference?
Yeah, I guess I'm just wondering a little bit more about what you mean in terms of so I think what I'm taking away is that you're suggesting that we present something through the web form, and then that will just start a conversation about how much things need to be developed and what kind of support we would need to get something to be ready for the conference. Is that sort of how you're imagining?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and Emma, would you want to share a little bit about what your experience was like with that last year?
And thank you for bringing that up, that I was going to talk about. I've thought about it in like with the language of thought partnering, and I don't know if that's an Emma-ism or something that I've picked up, but if folks are interested, there are opportunities for a member of the education committee or a member of OWHE to kind of help think through an idea. So if you were to be like, you know, Emma, I'm really interested in like something, if you have like a kernel of an idea and you're trying to figure out like, does this align with the mission, vision, and values? what could it look like? And so what I did last year was there was like this just absolute rock star of a group who had, you know, this idea around a panel, and they had proposed it, and the committee was like, well, you know, we could see it fitting, but we have these additional questions. So what I did was I did not come in and say, you know, here are the things you need to do to make this fit so we can accept you, but just to ask questions and to have a conversation with them to figure out the small adjustments that they needed to make, and even just some of the language shifts that they needed to accommodate, just to make it fit within the OWHE kind of vision and the purpose of the conference for that year. So there are opportunities if you're interested, and we totally understand that there are some folks who are like, Emma, I've got this. But if you did want to just talk through an idea and to try and figure out how it could fit in the conference, I'm available to do that, as well as other folks on the education committee, just to help ask questions and be someone who's an outside participant invested in your success as a proposer.
And a lot of times it also, you know, looks like just if you don't have the expertise in terms of intersectionality in any way, and we can kind of help provide that context for things or provide resources or recommendations. The other thing is that the very last question on the proposal is like, are you wanting or willing to work with the committee if we have concerns with your proposal? And there's an option to say no. So you can be like, this is what I'm providing, and if you don't want it, that's fine. And we're cool with that too. So it's really just about being flexible. And then I think, Christy, you had a question as well.
Yeah, so a colleague of mine had sent this information and the link and everything. And so I'm very new. I don't know much about the Oregon Women in Higher Education. So I apologize. I just got this yesterday. So I haven't done much homework to join in the conversation. So I just had a couple of questions in regards to who is your audience with this conference? Who are your participants? What are, I guess, and maybe you went over that or I missed that, and I apologize if it's redundant.
No, that's great. That's a great question. Welcome. Excited to have you. We have a pretty expansive member group. So we include undergraduates, grad students, anyone who works at a university in any capacity, or not at a university, but in like an adjacent field that's got relevant content, you know, working for College Possible or something like that. Or like Sara, right, does foster work, but within college context as well. So things like that, we've got a pretty big range there. We often have a good amount of like new attendees every year, and then, you know, returners depending on where it is or their time, right? It tends to flux a bit more, but we tend to get a good influx of new folks every year. We're also, you know, last year we made a big announcement at the conference that we are an anti-oppression organization, and that's really going to be at the forefront of what we do. And so, you know, our incoming board reflects that to some extent. It's much more diverse than it's been in the past. And so that's also been really a focus on making a space where folks can bring their whole selves and really be in community. And we have caucus spaces for that as well. One around sexuality and gender, and one that's around race. And so there's yeah, like I said, there's basically a niche for anything. And then it's confined pretty much to Oregon and the Portland metro area, goes into Washington a little bit. And men are allowed to come.
And what's that?
And men are also welcome.
Oh, okay.
We've only had, I think, one male attendee, but they are our allies, and, you know, we're doing a different kind of conference. And if folks who aren't used to coming to these never get to see them, then how are we going to make change, right? We need those allies and partners. So that's another kind of note that people don't necessarily realize.
Gotcha. So just a couple other questions. Do you have keynote speakers?
Yeah, we do. And we have we have a submission form for any folks who are interested in nominating themselves or anyone else.
Okay, and then, so you talked about, where do you find most of your participants in regards to what they do for a profession, career, hobbies, whatever? I guess that sort of helps me in knowing more about who the audience is as far as like what their role is. Is it more students? Is it more educators, or is it a combination, or is it just kind of all over the place?
It's pretty all over the place. I mean, we have people who, you know, just work in HR or, you know, marketing for a university, so they may not have a ton of student contact. We have folks who are students. A lot of grad students definitely come. It's a nice kind of first conference because typically when it's in person, you know, it's a little smaller, a little less overwhelming. And so we got a lot. We do tend to have a lot of emerging professionals, but we also have, you know, folks who are professors and deans and, you know, people who are trying to affect change that way as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for asking.
This has shifted, I think, a little bit in the last few years, but we do tend to get folks kind of like at the beginning of their career and towards the end of their career. And like I said, I do think these like kind of middle professionals, you know, the like 7 to 10 years, I think more are coming, but it does tend to be kind of the bookends, if that's helpful.
Awesome. Well, any other questions? Do we want to go back and do some group brainstorming? Any thoughts from y'all? We can also just keep it short and sweet.
I guess I have one other question. So I attended one conference. It wasn't last year, it was the year before. And I thought some of the most powerful spaces that were created were some of the more unstructured opportunities to have conversations with people. And so I guess what I'm wondering is, here when we're proposing something, are we proposing some of the more structured sessions, or is there also that possibility to propose like a conversation space or something that is that's a little more open? I don't know if that makes sense. For example, just for people who maybe weren't at that particular conference, two things that that I enjoyed very much about that conference was, one, that there was a physical space where people were constantly coming in and out and just having general conversation with each other, meeting new people and learning about what they did in the university. And that, you know, that happened in a big room, but that could certainly also happen virtually. And then another was you did an unconference format, which I thought was lovely. Helped people generate ideas and move into spaces. And so I just wondered about how what you're talking about now fits with those sort of unstructured, I mean, unstructured is not the right word, but those
no, I totally, yeah, no, I completely understand.
More innovative ways to promote conversation.
Yeah, so we'll definitely, I believe we're still planning to do the unconference. And we're definitely still going to have, you know, intentional spaces for community building and networking and things like that. But I do want to make this application open to folks who may have an idea for something like that specifically that they really want to do. And, you know, even if it's not what we would think of as a traditional conference session, that's fine. Like, this is a good place to kind of think through those questions about what it is you want to do. And then we can just figure out where to put it in the conference, right? If it doesn't look like a traditional session, that's fine. You know, as long as you're bringing something you think would benefit our community and that you'd like to offer to everyone, you know, it's fine if it's you leading something that looks more like community engagement. It's fine if it's you leading something that looks like a traditional conference session. Wherever it is, we want to find a way for you to fit and share. All right. Well, so I would recommend, if you have any questions, to just send me an email. So let me put my email in the chat. It's just education. I'm going to do my personal email because I know what that is for sure. And it goes to the same place. So again, I am the Director of Education. I would be willing, as would Emma or Sarah, other folks on our committee, to meet with you one-on-one if you want to do that before submitting a proposal, to just kind of be thinking through and going, answering the proposal together, any of that. We really want it to be a community and a supportive environment for you to create. So yeah, don't hesitate to reach out if you're interested in doing that. And for those watching on YouTube, you can go to our website. The proposal is linked on the conference tab, and my email is also listed under the board members. So if you want to reach out to me that way as well. All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us, and enjoy the rest of your day.